Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We considered Yamas and Niyamas, and then we came to the topic where Patanjali stands out, unique philosopher. He does not only prescribe and describe certain principles which are deemed as moral ethical principles, but he gives us a practical view as to how these principles get very naturally violated, and therefore how the measures should be taken, and the way to take measures against the antagonisers of Yamas and Niyamas is Pratipaksha Bhavana. And that's why that sutra came up. Vitarka badhane Pratipaksha Bhavanam and Himsadaya Vitarka. So we concluded that topic. Now we are coming to another interesting dimension to be taken note of, because usually it is felt that Yamas and Niyamas are basic requirements and they almost become means to yoga. It almost comes to mean that if you don't practice Yama Niyamas, that means there won't be any yoga. These are basic steps. There is also a popular notion about it that these are fundamental and basic steps. That unless you are in Yamas and Niyamas, you won't be getting an entry into field of yoga. So these are looked as means. But if you recall, while dealing with Yamas, we took another perspective there. While discussing Yamas, is that yoga itself becomes means for Yamas. If ahimsa, satya, asteya, etc. are basic preparatories, fundamental aspects, that means they become means for yoga. We have also considered how yoga itself is means for ahimsa, satya, asteya. So I want you to recollect that dimension which was considered. How did we do that? So you should know that by certain practices of yoga, our yamas get better established. Rather than the popular notion that yamas need to be practiced for better yoga, we saw that even our yoga can improve our yamas, and that is by Sangatraya, Satsanga, Shastrasanga, Sadhana, sanga, Achar-Vichaara, Aahara Vihaara, etc., the quartet, or Asanas, Pranayama, Kriyas, Mudras. These practices work on our biochemistries, work on our neurology, work on our consciousness organism, and they facilitate, they upgrade our yamas. They at least make our yamas more genuine rather than merely remaining as moral ethical practices. We develop the supporting biochemistry through Asana, Pranayama, etc., Kriyas, Mudras, etc. So, our yoga can actually improve our yamas. I hope you are able to recall that perspective that we had taken up. So here you will see that the Yamas and Niyamas, if they are theoretically considered as means of yoga, there is some aspect of yoga which is means for yamas and ahimsa, etc. yamas. So So, fine tuning the biochemistry, fine tuning the endocrine system, fine tuning the nervous system, they fine tuning the organic functioning, organic efficacy, organic tendencies. Our yamas are better practiced because of our asana, pranayama, japa, dhyana. That means our yoga becomes means for yamas. Now that is a unique perspective which comes in traditional way of imparting yoga rather than the dogma that they are means for yoga, so practice those. In that case they become moral ethical practices. But yoga can help improve the biochemistry behind those. Biochemistry is developed to prevent any violation of yamas. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, they get easily violated without supporting suitable, compatible biochemistry, nervous system, psychosensory system, the endocrine system, and therefore our practice of asanas, our practice of pranayama, our practice of japa, our practice of kriyas and mudras definitely contribute for more genuine yamas and niyamas rather than merely remaining as moral ethical principles and idealistic principles. Now, what we are considering today is that similarly, the Shaucha etc. niyamas become end. In the sense, upgraded Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, Svadhyaya would become end by our practice of yoga, by neophyte's practice of yoga. A neophyte by practice of his yoga in the way of asana, pranayama, kriyas, mudras, japa, dhyana, whatever. We know that they are not genuine, authentic yoga, but our mode of yoga can improve, reinforce the niyamas. And that is why this dimension we are taking as to what is the yogopai for niyamas. If we consider the yogopai for ahimsa, that is yoga as means for ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha. Now we are going to consider yoga, our yoga as means for Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, Svadhyaya, Ishvara. And this is so important in the practical realm, particularly for the neophytes and beginners. So our yoga becomes means for niyamas, as much as our yoga became means for yamas, which was considered on an earlier occasion when we were dealing with 5 yamas. Now, niyama, the first one is Shaucha. We think it is only something which is hygiene and cleanliness. And this is how it commences. That the cleanliness must be observed, hygiene must be observed. And usually it is only understood that Patanjali is speaking about cleanliness and hygiene as niyamas, which would sound as means of yoga. But we have already considered that Shaucha is not merely cleanliness and hygiene. It is more pervasive concept, more deeper concept. Like, for instance, by yogasanas as physical culture, because that is how the yogasanas are commenced, as physical culture. So with yogasanas coming in the mode of physical culture, which is usually the case of a beginner or a raw student, the toxins from the body are turned out. So the body gets to some extent detoxicated. Now that is obviously a niyama. That means our asanas in rudimentary conditions, as physical culture, as body exercises or physical exercises, what is called as Vyayama Amsha. Vyayama, exercisive component of asanas, will throw away the dirt from body matter and body organs. So also, the asanas in that form as Vyayama, as component, the exercisive component of asanas can also help us digest our food better and process our food better. So that would work for Sharirik Shuddhi. The physical cleanliness would improve. Because otherwise cleanliness is only understood by being under a shower, taking bath, being in bathroom, cleaning the body, washing the body. But if you recall, I had told you that some amount of toxins or some purification of the body will only take place when you burn calories, when you take exercise, when you sweat. Now, you will never throw that kind of dirt from the body by being under a shower for 24/7. That dirt will never go. The dirt which has come from outside will only go by your washing the body in a bathroom. But the dirt that is turned out within the body should find an outlet, and that is through the exocrine system, sweat glands, very process of sweating. So, by asanas, the sweat glands would work differently and some amount of dirt would be thrown out. So also the food would be better processed. Food will be better digested. And the Shuddhi of body will take place even by those asanas with their exercisive component. Then it gets exalted by certain Kriyas such as Uddiyana Kriya, Agnisar Kriya, Kapalbhati Kriya. So, in asanas also, some of these yogic kriyas can come in and they would improve the process of detoxification of the body. The various yoga mudras would work for the cleansing process exaltedly, which the physical culture doesn't work even. So, asanas, when there is incorporation of certain asana mudra, each asana has its mudra, and that mudra will be also working as a cleanser. And then there are Uddiyana Kriyas, variegated, Agnisara Kriya, Kapalbhati Kriya, all variegated. They would wonderfully work for cleansing the body in an exalted manner. Because without those Kriyas, you will certainly accept that the body is not purified by any other means. So there is exceptional Sharira Shuddhi, physical purification through yoga kriyas, asanas, mudras, etc. There is also organic cleansing. Our organs are better cleansed, better washed by yogasanas, the kriyas of yogasanas. Then there is glandular purification. the glands and endocrine system starts working better. The ductless glands start working better by asanas. And without asanas, they would never touch that level. And when I say asanas, the exercise component and little step beyond it by way of asana kriya, yogasana kriya, the mudras and asanas, etc. So, the nervous system is addressed better, glandular system is addressed better, so it definitely gives unique dimension to Shaucha, in the sense purification. In Hatha Yoga Shastra, we come across the Kriyas, Shat Kriyas, and one of them is Neti. And the Shastra describes the Neti in forms such as Sutra Neti, Jala Neti, Vastra Neti. So these are the processes mentioned. But traditional yoga had a concept which is not finding place in texts of yoga. However, that was very much there. So that is a unique concept. That is called Shvasana Dhauti, Shvasana Neti. So we know Dhauti, Neti, Kriyas of Hatha Yoga, and we can find what are the Dhauti processes, Neti processes by taking a reading of Hatha Yogic texts. But tradition has given something, the very process, practical process of it, has also something that can be called as Shvasana Dhauti, Shvasana Neti, Prana Dhauti, Prana Neti. And this would be exceptional measure of Shuddhi, purification, cleansing and purification. So, even asanas on a little proficient plane will induct you to some of the Dhauti Prayoga and Neti Prayoga. Asanas will do the cleansing. Like there is Sutra Neti, Jala Neti, Vastra Neti. There is something that can be called as Asana Dhauti and Asana Neti. They contribute exceptionally. And that would facilitate the chemical transformations to take place on a higher plane. Then through Asan, Pranayama, and then whatever aspects we are incorporating, such as Japa, Dhyana, etc., we would be raising up what is called as Akshobha Jivarasayani. Akshobha, agitation free, non-agitative, unagitated biochemistry. And this is so important in the Shaucham. So that would effect Chaitik Manasik purification, apart from corporeal purification. Japa Dhyana would excitedly work. We may not be able to notice, but they would be doing. When the Japa gets upgraded in Bhava Bhavana, naturally the Siddhi Prakriya would be exalted. So Japa Dhyana can work on Antashaucham, because we have considered Bahya Shaucham and Antashaucham. So by yoga sadhana, we would be able to engender sattva guna in very envying proportions, great proportions, whereby Rajatama gunas would be discouraged, mitigated. Now one should understand what is the value of Rajatama gunas on decline and Sattva guna on ascendance in Bahya Shaucha and Anta Shaucha. So yoga can become means for a higher grade of Shaucham. And if the yoga sadhana of our plane, Asan Pranayam, Asan Shwasayam Pranayam on Japa Dhyan on our plane, when it evolves, then the Vitarka Badha also would be lessened. There will be less chance of violation of Shaucha. Otherwise the Shaucha can be getting violated very easily. But because of intent, diligent and more classical approach in practices of Asan, Shwasayam, Pranayam, Japa, Dhyana and whatever aspects of yoga that we are practicing, they would also prevent Vitarka Badha. It is because they work on Gunavrutti. The management takes place on biochemistry and Gunavrutti, that is Sattva Rajatam Gunas. Of course, then in practical aspects of yoga, there is also Aahara Vihaara, etc. They are not only Asan, Pranayam, Shwasayam, Japa, Dhyana, but our Aahara Vihaara, Achar-Vichaara aspects, the Chatushya, the quartet, that also would be improved, upgraded, evolved. And this can be logically now conceived and construed that there are yogic means for niyamas. Now we consider the Shaucha. That the Shaucha would be exalted by our level yogic practices, which we very well know they are not authentic, genuine yogic practices. They are very rudimentary, raw, rudimentary, but yet they can contribute for our grade of Shaucham, Bahya Shaucha and Anta Shaucha. Similar is the case of Santosha. By Asan, Pranayam, Japa, Dhyana, Pranava Sadhana, Yoga Kriya, Yoga Mudra, we would be raising up the supporting Jiva Rasayani, the biochemistry of Santosha. We can easily infer biochemistry behind Santosha. And these practices would certainly improve the biochemical processes, electrochemical processes for Santosha. The secretion in the glands and secretion of all the organs would also facilitate for the Santosha to be evolved in grade and in volume. The very corpuscular particles, the corpuscular changes would be there by what we do as our yoga, which again I repeat is not genuine yoga, authentic yoga. We are just very rudimentary in our yoga. Asan, Shwasayam, Pranayam, Mudra, Japa, Dhyana, Pranava, Kriya, Yoga Kriya, etc. etc. Yet they would contribute to the biochemical processes and electrochemical processes in our embodiment, and the Santosha Vritti would certainly get encouraged. It would be harvested better. So Santosha Vritti, Santushta Vritti, Santushta Bhav, all these would be turned out. We will be able to generate them, replenish them. So the Mudra Kriya, Yogasana Kriya, Yoga Kriya, Shatchakra Kriya, Prana Kriya, Panchatattva Kriya, all these would definitely improve the biochemical processes. Of course, we will be going into little more details of it when we take up asana as the third limb of Ashtanga Yoga. But they all would certainly work for Santosha in an exalted way. So again, the Sangatraya, Satsanga, Sadhana Sanga, Shastrasanga, Aahara Vihaara, Achar-Vichaara, Chatushyam, which I have been repeatedly mentioning. So they would all get upgraded, evolved, reinforced. So that is about Santosha, how Santosha would get a boost by our yoga, our attempts in yoga, our prayoga in yoga, our experiments in yoga, our attempts in yoga. And now without these, you can understand how there will be hardly any scope for our Santosha to escalate, evolve, or get upgraded. So we have briefly seen how our yoga is means for Santosha. That is Yogopaya for Santosha. And not just consider Santosha as Yogopaya, but Yogopaya for Santosha. Then coming to Tapas, which is the third of the Niyama, the Tapas is ideally has to be Kaya, Vacha, Manasa. And for such kind of Tapas, Kaya, Vacha, Manasa, again our practices, when they evolve in technology of it, then they definitely contribute significantly for the Kaya, Vacha, Manasa Tapas. The Svadhyaya, Pranayama, Mudras, etc., they would certainly improve the infrastructure of Tapas. So the grade of Tapas would be again improved exceptionally. Why I am trying to tell you this is because many people have this idea, utopian idea, that first you must perfect your Yamas and Niyamas and then only your yoga will improve. And what I have tried to say is that you commence your yoga. You commence your yoga, by your yoga your Yama Niyamas would improve exceptionally. So, by asana, pranayam, shvasayam, etc., japa, dhyana, we get the balam and samarthyam. And when there is balam and samarthyam, our tapas is definitely evolved, improved, reinforced. In such case, the tamoguda infiltration would be lessened. And therefore, the sattvic component would grow in our tapas. Because you should recall that we had hailed sattvic tapas in yoga rather than rajasic and tamasic tapas. So yogic process will help you develop the sattvic tapas, which is more genuine, authentic tapas. So also vitarka badha will be kept at bay. This is an important thing to be considered. Because vitarka badha can come to Shaucha, Tapas, Shaucha, Santosha, so also to Tapas. So by our practices, our yoga, by practice of our yoga, which again I repeat is not authentic, genuine yoga, yet that would work in preventing the violations of niyamas. Then coming to Svadhyaya. the next of the Niyama. The Svadhyaya should be understood again, which I want you to recall. We discussed about it. Svavishayaka Adhyayanam. It is self-study. Study about the self. Study by oneself, about oneself, with respect to oneself, for oneself. So it implies some explorative approach, discoverative approach, some experimental approach. We'll have to experiment, we have to explore, we have to discover, we have to search, and then we have to experiment. So, with regards to self, there is always experimentation. Know thyself is experimental process, discoverative process, explorative process. So, this is enormously facilitated by asana kriya, asana prakriya, Shwasayam prakriya, Shwasayam kriya, Pranayam prakriya, Pranayam kriya. It would be a great harvest for Svadhyaya. Because Svadhyaya is seeking answers to such certain questions such as who am I? Whence am I? What am I? What is all this around me? Why all this is around me? Why am I like this? So this is the self-inquiry, and the yogic yogasanic academy, Shwasayamic Pranayamic academy is a wonderful academy for this kind of investigation and this kind of discoveration, exploration and experimentation. So we know that Svadhyaya is best done by Moksha Shastra Adhyayanam, is best done by Satsanga, hear the gospels of wiser people. Yes, undoubtedly, that it is absolutely true. But the internal satsang, autogenic satsanga through asana, shvasayam, pranayam, japa, dhyana, kriya, mudra, wonderfully contribute for self-exploration, exploring about the self by oneself, through oneself, for oneself. The amantrak samantrak pranayam does the marvel, because that mantra aspect is also Svadhyaya. Pranavari pavitrana mantro japaha. So the amantrak samantrak pranayam would also contribute for our Svadhyaya. And by this kind of explorative practices, discoverative practices, Rajatama gunas are discouraged and Sattva guna is harvested, generated, harvested, received, accumulated, stacked up better. So that's about Svadhyaya. So also Ishvara Pranidhana. Ishvara Pranidhana would take place better by a good supportive biochemistry and electrochemistry. So the esoteric anatomy physiology would definitely contribute for better grade of Ishvara Pranidhana. So again, by the yoga that we do as our yoga, there will be Manas Shuddhi, Bhava Shuddhi, Buddhi Shuddhi, Chitta Shuddhi, Ahankar Shuddhi, Pavitrya, Mangalya, All these things would greatly enhance. So also Asana Kriya, Shvasayama Kriya, Pranayama Kriya, Mudra Kriya, Yoga Kriya, Chakra Kriya, Prana Kriya, Tattva Kriya, which would be part of our syllabus at our hierarchy, they would certainly harvest the Sattva Guna. And that would make a mighty contribution for our grade of Ishvara Pranidhana, the purity of Ishvara Pranidhana, and the intensity of Ishvara Pranidhana. So the point is, the yoga that we practice or we can be practicing sooner or later can become great means for niyamas as well. And again, I want you to finally recall, which I have been repeatedly telling you at every practical aspect of yoga: Satsanga, Sattvasanga, Sadhusanga, Santosha, Satyasanga, Shastrasanga, Sadhana Sanga, Sthula Sharira Sadhana, Sukshma Sharira Sadhana, Karana Sharira Sadhana, the Sadhana Sanga in that way. To whatever extent we are able to take up, that will contribute for our Yama Niyamas, now Niyamas particularly here. So also on the level of asanas that we do, that also can contribute mightily to do the Gunavrutti management. The Asana Kriya, Yogasana Kriya, the Yogasana Mudra, then the various Kriyas of Yogasana, the Ashtadasha Mahakriyas of Yogasana. So those would really be of enormous assistance, enormous bounty for niyamas. So point is, this was a dimension that I felt important to be divulged, rather than that stereoscopic thought that yamas and niyamas are a means of higher yoga. I am telling you, asana onwards, our yoga can be means for yamas and niyamas. And the tradition has been passing this message through the legacy. And therefore we considered this aspect today, yogopai for Yama Niyamas. So this would certainly be far better grade of moral ethical principles. If you think that they are like that, then their grade would be quite superior by the yoga that we practice coming as means for them. Now, with that topic which was chosen for today's session, we have tried to handle it. Now one can open on the portal and start doing necessary exploration, discoveration and experimentation, attempts to really understand the logic behind this precept that has come in today's session. Now we come to the final lap of Yama Niyamas, because Patanjali mentions something that he calls as Vrata Siddhi. That is, yamas attained, conquered, what happens? Niyamas attained, conquered, what happens? Ahimsa Vrata Siddhi, Satya Vrata Siddhi, Asteya Vrata Siddhi, Brahmacharya Vrata Siddhi, Aparigraha Vrata Siddhi, when the vows are accomplished, there is incredible effects thereof. And that also will tell you with better clarity as to what are these yamas, because unless we consider the Vrata Siddhi, Ahimsa Siddhi, the Satya Siddhi, etc., and Shaucha Siddhi, Santosha Siddhi, Tapas Siddhi, the fruits which are mentioned will give better direction to what are these yamas and niyamas, which will again convince you that these are not moral ethical principles, these are ethico-religious principles. So that is the topic that now comes up, that is considering yama phalas and niyama phalas, the fruits of yamas and fruits of niyamas. From the fruits we will know what kind of seed they have. So that is going to be the topic coming hereafter. The Yama Niyama Vrata Siddhi and their fruits or fructification thereof. So this is the topic that is coming up. This will be commenced in our next session. So enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.